Anatawa, Onishiwam, no me.
Good morning, and welcome to this episode of the WickerShire project mid-May. You may have questions about fertilizers and how they work. What an organic fertilizer is compared to like an inorganic fertilizer or a synthetic fertilizer. Which ones are good and which ones are bad. The truth of the matter is, it
Doesn't matter.
all fertilizers, for the most part, that become available nutrients to plants are the same chemical composition. The plants don't know the difference. When you have an organic fertilizers are not yet available for the plant to uptake. The molecules are way too big. I believe they're bound with proteins and they're very complex. As the bacteria attack any type of fertilizer that is an organic and make it inorganic meaning not with the protein anymore, becomes water soluble and becomes refined down to its elemental form. The organic fertilizer that you're using, all the nutrients that the plant needs, when you put an organic manure in there, it is not available for the plants. That's why you need your soil microbiology to attack that. Picture a human being try to eat a 24-ounce steak. You can't do it. It's too big. So the bacteria being your fork and your knife cut it into little bits. You understanding? Now it's in a simpler form where you can eat it as a plant, chew it, digest it, and grow. Anywho, I hope this clarifies some things for you guys about organic or inorganic fertilizers and how companies and people misunderstanding how they're used is used against you to thinking, oh, I'm growing organic or I'm not growing organic. It doesn't matter. Once any element that a plant requires from an organic is broken down into an inorganic, its elemental state, viable and water soluble and usable as salt format. Salts are not what you're thinking. So our bodies and plants use a lot of these macronutrients in a salt form, and that is a water soluble form. It's not table salt. You know, it's nothing like that whatsoever in its chemical composition. Table salt will kill plants. What kind of fertilizer should I use? Am I going to harm my plants? Well, yeah, maybe, if you're overdoing it. When we feed our plants anything, it is in light doses watered down. It is the safest method to underfeed our plants than to overfeed them. And by feeding the plants, I mean feeding the microbiology in the soil. If it has the required elements that are inside the fertilizer, which most of them do. If you made new soil from your local soil, and it's somewhere near trees, more than likely all the leaves that have fallen down are starting to break down over the years, and the soil that's underneath that is loaded with fungi and bacteria, all sorts of enzymes, and it's a really large living culture of microorganisms that are inside the soil. And the way to keep those microorganisms alive is to keep the soil damp and wet. Moist soil, the microorganisms live in the water inside the soil, in the dampness of it. And this is why we have to water. You should never overwater your plants, especially if they're in pots like this. You'll flush all that nutrients out if you're overwatering. You'll know that because the bottom of the plant starts drip, 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 drip. So what I'm doing is I'm coming in here, you'll see there's some dead plant matter, as I'm pruning off the bottom leaves that are hanging down, touching the soil. And in between these notches, just on the first 10 inches, I'm pulling off any of the suckers that are growing out of there. That right there on the upper part of the plant is a sucker. I don't mind it. That's fine, but I don't want any leaves or suckers on the bottom half of the tomato plants. And that's what I'm currently looking for. As I'm pruning my brains out, I have a leaf that's pretty low. It's not going to touch the ground here, so I will leave that. But I have one here that's pretty close that'll get splashed on if it's rained. So I'm going to come in here with my fingernails and just give it a pinch. Drop that down. And this plant is looking pretty trimmed. Just pulled this one off. Like I said, the first 6 to 8 inches are trimmed up. You get a tomato like this that's spindly, and you have plants just hitting the ground. I had to take those leaves off and just push them aside. They'll break down eventually. So yeah, it's pretty clean right there. That's what you're looking for when you tomato plants. Get at least a foot of height on them. You don't have to do a lot. You just want to trim a little bit daily. Go out there and check it. This one here is pretty low. I'll keep an eye on it. Except for that leaf. That one's coming off. That looks a lot better. This one's on my eggplants. This one's a little too low. Really? See all these little flea beetles? Oh, they hop. That's probably why they call them flea beetles. This one's a nightmare. I've been working on it. You can see there's just too much going on. This is way too much going on. You see these white fuzzy hairs? These are trichomes. These protect the plants, they radiate temperature, all that kind of stuff. If you look in a little deeper, you're going to see these little hard bumps. These are not trichomes, these are root nodes. Those will produce roots. So you get the white fuzz. Those hairs are different from the things that are sticking out down the bottom here that are longer, that you can visibly see pretty clearly with the naked eye. Those are root nodes, and all the white fuzzy stuff, those are trichomes. This is Sharon's flower bed. Everything is filling in nicely. Yeah, those are peppers in the back. And this here is the herbs. And we are getting our first nasturtium right there. On the end here, this is chamomile. Down by the chicken coop, the peppers are over a foot tall. That one's a foot. It's a foot tall. That one there is about 10 inches. So these peppers near the chickens are doing great. My competition, Detroit, I can't grow beets for the life of me. So I think we're going to lose that contest. Even though the leaf structure on this one looks great. The corn is 3.5 feet. So that's looking good. The competition, Ford hook zucchini, is outgrowing the camera lens. It's just massive leaves. And if you look in there, can you see it? There's our first zucchini we hand pollinated. Maybe that's a winner. There's just peas and other things happening over here, really slow. The sunflower's looking great. Starting to get some height, getting closer to 4 foot. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the WickerShire project. And hopefully we can grow something decent. We got a good feeling we'll have a great harvest. What's up, Goose Goose?